Click the links for Odyssey, Bit Chute, or to join channel, support channel on Coffee, PayPal, crypto, whatever the other various links. Join the Telegram for sure. That is the best way to keep in touch. Or join the new Discord, Discord number 4, because Discord number 3 got nuked this morning for terms of service. I have no idea why. There are SCWs who troll the Discord for some reason. I don't know why you would troll a YouTube channel with 1,000 followers. That is bizarre to me when there's so many bigger targets. But anyway, these weirdos come into Discord and they just report. So you can email me for a link to the new Discord and I will figure out like how to assign moderators so you can, I don't know, kick people out and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, this is 2022, and it feels like 2016, 2017 in terms of Comicsgate and these anti-Comicsgate weirdos. I'm scrolling through Twitter, and if you go to Twitter and you punch in Comicsgate will come up, and there'll be like 250 tweets that day of mostly Comicsgate people who are trying to get eyeballs on their project, talk about something new, talk about a live stream. But it seems like there's this cottage industry of anti-Comicsgate people, like it's 2017 all over again. It kind of died back with the Mark Waid stuff. Things kind of went underground. And now when that's settled, it's like all flaring back up again. And there's a bizarre collection of a lot of soy boys. There's a lot of soy boy energy with this kind of, like, you see these guys who, you look at them and they would have a different opinion if they ate less and maybe got a little bit of exercise. Like there's some people who are like, I don't know if it's faux outrage or if they're just angry at something else and they're kind of focusing it on CG because it's a safe weight event. But if they ate less, got a little exercise, they wouldn't give two shits about Comicsgate anymore. Like there's a lot of these people who, like, when you're happy and things are going well, you're just not outraged about a lot of things that you would be. And I look at these guys and I'm like, yeah, none of these anti-Comicsgate people are good looking people. And I know, and I don't mean that to be a jerk. I mean that because it's kind of like what you put out in the universe is kind of what you get back. And you see these people who are so outraged. It's just like, lose 50 pounds and you won't give a shit about Comicsgate anymore. And probably you won't give a shit about comics in general or video games because you'll be out banging your girlfriend or going jogging through the hills and having fun. And like, you just won't care about Twitter. And these people spend hours on Twitter. And there's even YouTube channels where people are anti-Comicsgate on YouTube. And, hey, if you can make $500 for YouTube ad revenue, go for it. I think most people in CG would just give you the absolute thumbs up, because it's no skin off their nose if you want to go on YouTube and rage against. And I'm calling, like, there's a Venn diagram overlap of Comicsgate, Phantom Menace. Even if like people are not, they literally are not Comicsgate because they don't like the EVS association, I'll call them like counterculture, the counterculture group, because the culture now, counterculture used to mean kind of almost de facto left wing, because the culture was kind of somewhat moderate. Now the culture is left wing and moving left. So counterculture now is going to be right wing. It's going to be people who are rejecting the mainstream kind of Bolshevik propaganda that they're pushing, and that's Phantom Menace and Comicsgate, and even people like Mike Miller, Doug TenNapel, Tim Lim, who are making counterculture comics and stories that don't fit the narrative. So we're all kind of loosely in this area. A lot of this begs the question. Look at Mark Brooks, and the simple thing is like, well, why do you care? Oh, I'm just concerned for... Oh, you're concerned trolling. You don't care. If you're concerned for me, you send me like a private DM, maybe, and explain your decision. It's like, oh, Comicsgate's just full of horrible people. Like, can you back that up in any way, shape, or form? I know, it's just something I heard. It's like, oh, yeah, we all know she's a witch. That's why we burned her. Some of these anti-CG people are legitimately, I think, mentally ill, or they're like borderline personality. They're on the spectrum somehow. I don't think it's I don't think they're just like pure grifters. Like they're on YouTube and they figure like, hey, I can make some money just being anti-CG. I don't think it's like cognitively intentional at that point. I think there's some mental issues with some of these people. I don't know if they're. I mean, I saw some of their videos, and I know they're not firing on all 8 cylinders. And the thing is, like, to do stuff like this that is so obviously cringy is, I guess, that's borderline personality disorder when you can't tell how people are perceiving you to get involved, like to be an adult, a 30-year-old, 40-year-old male, and get online publicly and have little bitch fights like this. That's Most people would look at it from the outside and be like, oh, wait, I'm an adult and I'm acting like a child. This is not something I want to do. Anyway, the spurgery now is worse than it was, I don't know, peak 2017. Comicsgate is tiny. It was never going to replace the industry. So why did they care? Why did they give a rat's ass about Comicsgate? Because Comicsgate is something that there's some energy behind. Mainstream comics are such bullshit propaganda that people decided to start making their own comics. That's a pretty crappy industry when a bunch of people on YouTube decide to reject it and literally create their own industry from the ground up. It's got to be like a splash of cold water in your face. And with every little Comicsgate project that gets promoted on Twitter, it's a tiny little twist of the knife that people would rather support this plucky band of upstarts than buy Marxist propaganda. And, keep in mind, Comicsgate's a premium industry. You're paying way, way over what you would pay. You could go to a store and get the equivalent stories for like a third the cost. It's like you're willing to pay $35 online because that's how bad the mainstream is. But it's more than just being bad. It's that Comicsgate is good, but you also want to support these people because, I don't know, it's kind of a movement. And like, you're only supporting them to own the libs. It's a part of it. It's a part of it. It's to support small industry, people who provided you with some kind of entertainment in the hope that the comic is going to be good. And in most cases, from what I've read of Comicsgate stuff, it's been freaking amazing to see what amateurs can produce, to be fair. And then there's also some professionals who are comic creating their own IPs. That's been awesome too. I mean, the quality of CG has been pretty damn high. And the thing is, they don't really have a reason to hate CG. That's why their criticism is way over the top. And it's also amorphous. It's without shape, form, or substance. It's cloud-like. It's really... That's why they do this. They call everyone like so far right or Hugo Boss. Everyone who disagrees with them is Hugo Boss. But when you look at Comicsgate, you see a bunch of dads who are selling comics on YouTube. I look at all the people involved, and I'm just seeing normal people. I don't see people. I don't see what they claim to see. And the thing is, I don't think they see it either. EVS is their main target, but he's not an SJW, so they call him far right because he's not an SJW. But they don't define what that means or why it's a bad thing or how it meets the elements of the definition. He's just a comic book guy who's selling comics on YouTube. There's no there, which is why their insults are sort of very, very broad, and when you try to pin it down, I mean, they do the same thing they said with Trump. It's like, well, everybody knows because someone told me. It's like, yeah, but at some point you have to have an origin of this. You have to have some evidence that goes to the origin of this. It's like, oh, well, this one time this one person at Comicsgate did this one thing, and that's reduction. I don't know. Extrapolate to the whole. What's that fallacy? It's like one person, one member of a group did it, so it's applied to the whole. It's like, well, you wouldn't do that with any other group. So why do you do a Comicsgate? Oh, because they're not on the left, so we can do it. Well, if you have principles, then you can't do that because you have principles. If you don't have principles, then you're not arguing from a principle position. You're just arguing from emotion. There's no way to beat an irrational argument with logic. And they're still outraged on Twitter in 2022 because Comicsgate is a rejection of cultural Marxist comics. And to be fair, Comicsgate is slowly growing every year. It's not like, I don't know if they thought it was just going to go under the rug or go away, but it's definitely not. It's spreading out to a lot of very small projects that people are trying to getting their foothold in this comic door and deciding that, oh, it's kind of fun to make comics and make cards and posters and pinups and toys and, T-shirts and hats. And it's like, it's a community of people who are, I guess, counterculture. It's going to have to be like maybe like a Comicsgate counterculture flag is what it is. It's just people who are rejecting. It doesn't matter if it's you're Phantom Menace and you're rejecting the Star Wars, the stuff that's coming out of Hollywood. It's coming from the same place of rejecting these Frankfurt School propaganda. And that's why they're so pissed off, because we're not accepting the agenda that like, oh, you guys should hate yourself. Like, why would we? We're freaking awesome. We know how awesome we are. Right? I mean, you're telling us to to hate ourselves, but we know we're very, very cool people. And we look at you and we see soy boys and we see cat ladies. And like when soy people and cat people are telling us to hate ourselves, we look at them and we're like, you guys need to go jogging a little bit and maybe put down the ice cream. Anyway, people decided to reject the mainstream comics so hard that an industry literally was created. Jawbreaker started it all. He got $200,000 on his first campaign, and then Mark Waid decided to throw his 2 cents into the mix. And that $200,000, because of Mark Waid's interference, turned into $400,000. It's weird to seek remedies when you've actually been improved by somebody's tortious interference, which actually is a subset of remedies law, when the negligence or the damage caused, the damage is actually improved. It's a bizarre. You're like, yeah, it would not have hit as much. Comicsgate would not have made as much money as it did for Myers Project, Jawbreakers, and subsequent projects. But Comicsgate as a whole, if the SJWs didn't attack it, which, if you want to play a game of chess, you kind of look at like the main players in Comicsgate and go like, so who's really pulling the strings here to manipulate? Because you can manipulate SJWs like they can manipulate us, and so far it's been to Comicsgate benefit. And EVS is kind of a master of manipulating SJWs and other people, and I don't mean that necessarily in a bad way. It's not always a negative thing. It's like, yeah, you're providing a show, and part of providing a show is people are paying for entertainment, and you can get people to pay for that entertainment. And it's like, if you can get people to buy your comic book, and it's part of this movement, and it's part of owning the libs. It's like, that's not a reason to buy a comic book. It's like any don't get in the way of people giving you money. If they want to have fun with something and feel that it's worth it to them to support some member of Comicsgate in some way because you're part of this movement, any reason's a good reason to have people buy your product. Anyway, modern comics, they're not the classic stories that you remember from a long time ago. And the thing is, you start thinking about comics, they've been crappy for a very long time. Like I figure in my mind, I say 1990, roughly 1990. If you go before 1990, you're going to find more good comics than bad comics. And after that, you start to find the wokeism and things, comics were always woke, but after 1990, the wokeism just gets way over the top. Before that, you're going to find you're going to find a lot of good stories. Like if you just wanted to read comics pre-1990s, from the 40s to the 90s, you're going to be very happy, and you can read stuff for the rest of your life, and you never need to go past that date. And I think one of the insults they say to Comicsgate is like, oh, you guys were just stuck in the 90s. Well, was it a radical time? Were things awesome? Was the product better in the 90s? Because I can look at a lot of things, even rock music. You can go back to the 80s and 90s and go, oh, was it better then than now? Let's see, Megadeth, Metallica, Guns N' Roses. Even when did Stevie Ray Vaughan helicopter crash? I think it was 86. Yeah, I'd say Ozzy Osbourne, Black Sabbath. Well, that was kind of the 70s. But yeah, I'd say stuff was better pre-1990s. And even at the latest, you want to say the 90s, for sure. Look, what do you have now? I just read an article. They're talking about the music industry has this article out where they said modern music is not selling the way it used to. Like there's older music is way, way more popular. And I read that article, and the thing is, I was given blood, and I was waiting, or I was given blood, and I'm listening to music on their, like they have a satellite station, and I'm hearing Madonna songs from like the 90s, and then I start paying attention to the songs I'm hearing like stuff from the 80s and 90s, and it's 2022, and it's like, yeah, maybe there's something to it. Anyway, comics have not been kind of written on merit, because you're not hiring people on merit in a very long time. You're hiring people who, because of their sex, or in some cases, people who, I guess, you're hiring women or people who claim to be women, and then you're hiring people for their nation of origin type of thing, their identity sort of thing. But as a consequence, you're not hiring on merit, and every story is going to have a blonde-haired, blue-eyed antagonist, and you're going to have a purse puppy protagonist, and every story is going to feel really formulaic, because you get 30 to 40-year-old cat ladies who are writing comics, and soy boys. You're going to get soy soft comics, and that's not hyperbole. You can go read modern comics and prove me wrong. If you can come up with a dozen modern comics, please present them. I would love to take a look at them. Bolsheviks now control comics, and they've taken off the mask. Every story is going to be Blonde Man Bad, and everyone is going to be BLT something, Purse Puppy. Then they get kind of confused when the comics aren't flying off the shelf. It's like, well, you've written a comic for 1% of American audience in general, and then you look at people and like the vibe of comics, people who want to buy comics. It's like, okay, well, a country of a third of a million people is why Mags Visaggio was selling 900 copies. Anyway, I hate these people. I hate concern trolling. I hate this passive aggressive, just pussy ass bitches. People who, I don't know if they always got picked last for sports or whatever, but like, oh, we're going to gatekeep you from the mainstream industry. Okay. That's not quite the threat that it used to be. If the industry is in decline and you're gatekeeping people who were never going to get, Tim Lim, he's I don't know, some kind of audiologist or something. He was never going to get hired in the mainstream industry in the first place. Even some of the pros in Comicsgate, it's not that they weren't hired in the mainstream industry, but the work was getting more and more infrequent because you're replacing a male, a fair male of one origin with a woman from another area of the world, simply based on where their blood group is from. That's not on merit. So you get these guys who are like, oh yeah, well, mainstream comics isn't knocking down my door anymore. It's like my artistic skills have increased, and you're getting these people who are not able to sell the comics. I mean, usually in the case of writers are the ones who are dooming the projects because the best artists in the world can't make up for an SJW storyline. So these people, it's like, oh, we're threatening you, keep you from the industry. It's like, yeah, but they weren't hiring me anyway just because I'm an Englishman and I'm straight. So I'm not going to get hired in the industry. It's not a threat. If I have to go on YouTube and own the IP, well, that's a bigger carrot than any carrot you could offer. Anyway, screw these people. Rah, go Comicsgate. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.